everyone, Jamie Madison here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing this cute little card. This is with the Simon Says Stamp card kit for August. So for this card today, we are going to be going in with some Bristol Smooth in 300. And I'm going to pull out my stamping platform. I do have some tape on my platform so I know where to put my paper just in case it moves whenever I'm stamping and I need to restamp, which I didn't have to end up doing, but in case I did, I knew exactly where my paper was going to go. The paper I needed to be completely stamped. Normally I would use a little bit bigger of a piece of paper and use my magnets, but in this situation I did not. I went ahead and went in with my static powder tool. So I made sure I tapped on the top of this powder tool, and that was to make sure that I got a lot of powder out. I went ahead and went in with my Versa Mark. This is my clear embossing ink that I like to use. I went ahead and liberally applied that all over my stamp and then stamped that down onto my Bristol Smooth paper. I made sure that I put really good pressure because this was a one-time stamping situation. I didn't want to have to go back in and have that chance of it not working. So whenever I lifted up my stamp, it did cling to my stamp. So then I just took the opportunity to push down with my fingers and make sure that everything was pushed in very nicely. Now I'm going in with my embossing powder. This is in white. I do use a clear later on, but this one I used white. I do plan on going back over this paper with some color, so I wanted this white to pop out. So I just kind of rotated my paper because my little tray was not big enough to pour it all over the card, but it worked out very fine. So then I just tried to tap off any of the excess powder. Considering the whole piece of paper was embossed, I really couldn't grab onto it. And then I had my heat tool nice and hot, and I kind of go over my whole card just to see if there's any extra loose powder. It kind of pushes it off as well. Then I start in a tiny little corner because this whole paper is embossed, so I don't want to touch anything yet. So I start in a corner and I let that cool for a second. That way I can grab the paper and hold on to it and not have to worry about messing up my image. So then I just went through the whole card and made sure that everything was embossed and heat set. Then I got back my stamping platform back out and I picked out this floral image from the card kit. And then I realized that my platform was still on the rubber side, so I switched it over to clear and picked up my image, and now I'm going to go in with the VersaFine in Onyx Black. And I made sure that I liberally put ink on that stamp. And I only stamped this once. I didn't want the lines to be too harsh and too dark. I did want this to be still like a softer flower look. And this is where I went in with my clear. So this is a clear embossing powder so you won't show anything. But this is just so when I am coloring with this Bristol Smooth, this ink does not dry very quickly, at least quick enough for me. I do like to move very quickly. I don't want to waste time waiting for my ink to dry, so I just heat emboss it, and it works very well. I don't have any issues with it. It doesn't smear or rub. So then I went over with my heat tool and heat set this image as well, and that was super simple because it's a small image, so it didn't take very long, and then I just heat the back to keep from warping. Now I'm going to go in with my Arteza markers, and this one here is an Arctic Blue. I do have the names and the numbers of all of the brushes that I used today up in the left hand corner. I didn't use that many colors, so I did provide them at the top of the screen while I am watercoloring these images. So with this Arctic Blue, what I did was I just went on the corners and just very lightly put my color down. I want this to look like a piece of glass. I want this to look like an old glass that you would get in like a farm shop. I actually have a couple of these glasses in my house, and we do keep our flowers in them, these little jars. We actually have a Farm Fresh where we live. It's called a little store. It's called Farm Fresh. So I thought that was kind of cute. So then I'm going to go ahead and color my roses. These roses I wanted to be a nice blush pink. So I went in with the 187 in Bubble Bath Pink, and just to lay down my color. And then I'm going to go back in with my 163 in blush pink to add some shading to it. With the bubble bath pink, I pretty much colored the whole flower. I didn't leave any white in it. Considering I'm going to go back in with the darker color, that's going to give me more of my shading. I really didn't want to leave too much white on these flowers. So with the bubble bath pink, as you notice, I didn't even pick up my water pen. It was a light enough color that I didn't need to blend it out. I just colored the whole flower. And then I'm going to go in with my pen and blend it all together. This actually does end up lighting the color up a little bit as well, because it does pull some of the color back out. This is a very simple watercolor technique. You would have no problem recreating this at all. Alrighty, so now that we have the flowers all colored in, I'm going to go in with my Seaweed Green. This is the 120, and I'm going to just do the stems and half of the leaves. So just one side of the leaves with the Seaweed Green. And then I'm going to go back in with the 126 and do the other side of the leaves. Then I will blend them together and it will kind of give it more of a light effect. If that's even a word, I'm not quite sure. But to me, it makes it look like the light is hitting it and it's lightening up part of the flower and leaves. I like the way it ended up turning out. I almost wish that with this stamp set, they included the stems going all the way into the jar. I don't like how they kind of just disappear. You know, a jar you would see through. So I think there should have been stems coming down from the flowers. But that's just my own opinion. I guess I'm being a little picky again. So right where the stems hit the flowers, I went back in with my blush pink and just kind of deepened that little area where the stem and the flower met to kind of combine those two colors together. Now we're going to get that embossed card that we did in the beginning. And then I'm going to go in with that very light pink, that 187 bubble bath pink, and I'm going to put that all over my acrylic black with some water. So what I want to do is kind of like a pink wash on this card. I want there to be just the tiniest bit of pink in the background. The water brush pen that I was using was not putting out enough water and color for me. So I pulled out my paintbrush. This is the number 4, and this is the Zen, I believe is what they're called. And then I just kind of quickly went over that whole piece of paper with that bubble bath pink and water. You can't hardly see it on the screen, but there is a tint of pink, which makes that white embossing that we did really pop. And you can see that in the finished card. It shows up because once that dries, you can really see that. I did add a little bit more pink at the very end. As you can see right here as I'm going back through, you can kind of see it a little bit more, but it did not pick up very well with my camera. And then here I am using my stamp chamois. I use that little guy for absolutely everything. It is the most handiest little thing. And here is the stamp set that we have used. I'm going to pick this with Love sentiment at the very top. The only issue that I have with this sentiment is, I say sentiment wrong, I know, sentiment, I guess is the way you say it. I'm kind of from the country, so I have a little bit of a weird way I pronounce my words. I get told that a lot. So if I say something wrong or pronounce it wrong, I do apologize. I guess I'm not very proper. But with this with Love, I don't like the curlicues in the front and at the end on most of these. It almost looks like the word is going into another word. So like the thank you, the you looks like your to me. At least that's how I do my cursive writing. So I did cut off the curlicues, most of the curlicues off of this with you sentiment. As you can see, it fits better and I like the way it's more pronounced. I know the squiggly lines make it look more fancy, but it just wasn't for me. So I just changed it to make it more for me. And that's what I love about these stamps. And I do keep the extra pieces if I do decide to use it, but I like the way this looks a lot better. I did, for where it cut, it had like a harsh line. So I just took my pen and finished the swirl up a little bit so it looked like it was supposed to be like that. So now we're going to get all of our card pieces here together. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my embossed card. I'm going to go ahead and use my ATG gun and apply that liberally to the back. This actually didn't end up warping, surprisingly, considering this is really not a watercolor cardstock. So I just put a lot of adhesive on it regardless, just so it wouldn't bubble or pop up anywhere. And I applied that to my Nina Solar White in 110. I'm almost out of this cardstock, but I have used the Micheals 110 pound cardstock, and they almost look identical, especially for it just being, you know, a backing for the most part. You don't really see it much. I'm pretty happy with just using the Micheals. I get a lot more for my money. So I went ahead and adhered that, and then I took my little circle that has the With Love, and I used my Tombow glue and just applied that generously because I am applying this to a embossed backing. So with my ATG gun, the tape, that would have been able to be peeled off really easily, and I didn't want this to be able to move or have a chance of coming off. So I used my glue, and I knew that was going to stay once it was on there. Then I picked up my little double-sided foam tape. This is the one from Dollar Tree. And I just cut the little pieces to make them smaller so they would fit more at the top of the flowers. I didn't want any pieces not being supported. And then I just pulled my backing off and found the perfect spot on this card for this cute little flower image. So we are close to being done with this card. I went in with my Tombow glue so I can add my sequins. And I am going to look at the Gina K glue. I know Deb Ross mentioned it, that it was a really good glue for sequins, but I haven't had a chance to do an order lately. So I am looking into that glue, and hopefully I can get that ordered with my next purchase. So thank you, Deb Ross, for mentioning that. I am definitely going to give that a try, and I appreciate your comment. So I went in with that Tombow glue and just added a couple little dots. And I'm going to go in with those April crystals. I love these April crystals by Studio Katia. These, I think, are one of my favorite sequins or crystals. I don't know what the actually term is. I would just say crystals that I've ever bought. I think I'm going to be using these for pretty much every card. They just go perfectly with any color. It just picks up anything in the background. So I just used my jewel picker. This little guy is getting better and better with use. So we got these little jewels adhered, and you would think that we're done with this card, but we are not. We have to add some glitter. So I went in with my Wink Estella, and I just put that on the corners of the jar and the sides, and then I just lightly put it on the flowers. I didn't cover the whole flowers. I just did the corners and then just the very top, almost like some glitter just sprinkled down on top of my flowers. And then I did the whole sentiment with love using the Wink Estella, just to give that some little bit of a glitter. And of course, this card would not be complete without some twine that came with this kit. I tied a little bow, took a little bit of that twine, cut it, glued it down to the jar so it looks like it is wrapping around the jar. And then I put a little dot of glue to put my bow on top. This glue actually works really well. It has a very good adhesive once it's dried. I did use the end of my jewel picker, just the plastic part, the little cap, to hold that down just so it adhered very well. And I did another one of these cards in yellow. So I just think this is a cute little set. One says thank you, one says with love. And I do want to thank you guys so much for joining me and watching my videos. I hit 100 subscribers recently. Never thought that was going to happen. I just really enjoy making cards, and I love sharing it with you guys. So thank you so much for joining me. You guys have a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for my next one. Bye!